right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Wilson School District. I see a lot of familiar faces. I saw some faces from the past as well, so I very much appreciate all of you giving up some time tonight to be here to really learn more about where we are in regards to the Lincoln Park Elementary School project. My name is Chris Trickett. I'm the superintendent of schools here at Wilson, a very proud member of our team. A little bit about me, for those of you that don't know me, I've been a district resident for 23 years. I live over in Warnersville. I have 3 children that all attend the Wilson School Districts. Currently, I have 2 daughters in the high school, and I have 1 in the middle school. It's really been our home ever since I moved here back in 2002, and just am very proud of the work that we're doing together as a community to ensure that we're putting forth our best effort for our children. This presentation today obviously is focused specifically on Lincoln Park Elementary School. And I'm going to talk about all the progress that we've made to date and a variety of other factors as it relates to this site. We also have some other work that's being done, some other projects that we're talking through specific to Southern Middle School and the site over there. And also we broke ground recently on a pretty large project, performing arts project at the high school. But again, the project or this conversation tonight will be focused on the site here on the screen. So a little bit of the agenda here for this evening. We're going to spend some time looking back to talk about where we've come from to get to this point here today. Talk about the research, the evaluative process that we used, and our analysis. We're going to talk about the Lincoln Park Elementary School recommendation and provide some additional information regarding how we arrived at that recommendation. We're going to take a look at the site plan. As I know, many of the folks that are here in the audience today live very close to this school. So this meeting is for our entire community, obviously, but we really want to make sure that we spend some time talking about the impacts and engaging in conversation for our residents and taxpayers that live closest to the Lincoln Park proposed site. We're going to talk about some community conversations and considerations. You will all, pending time that we have the opportunity to come up and share your thoughts and concerns, recommendations, celebrations, whatever you would like to share with us. I do have a full team of people here to support the conversation after we get through the presentation. We have many members from our school board that are here tonight. Thank you so much for being here and supporting our work that we're doing. Many members of our district leadership team are here as well. So if we have some individual time at the end, we'll kind of go into different quadrants of the room if there's some specialized and specific questions for individual teammates. Included in that group, we have our CFO, we have our Director of Transportation, we have our Director of Facilities, our teaching and learning team is here, as well as a full litany of other folks. One person I want to highlight too, Mr. Stanger is here. He's one of our elementary school principals and a former teacher at Lincoln Park Elementary School. The last person as well, we have Sean Dowdy with us today in the front. He is our architect, our lead architect, who is working with us on the site design, as well as all the other pieces of this project. So I want to take us back in time, and I apologize, some of you are well versed in where we've come from and how we got here, but I do want to take a few moments to talk through the history. So back in 2018, the district had a lot of conversation regarding different facilities-related needs, and we were having these conversations regarding things from mechanical systems to enrollment to roofing projects to HVAC. And we decided to engage in a district-wide feasibility study. And we really used this process as an opportunity to provide us with a resource that we could use for that more long-term longitudinal planning. And that study, which we'll talk a little bit more about on our website, is linked, and it really encompasses about 300 pages of everything you would need to know about the Wilson School District, including pictures and the quality of our different facilities, as well as a little bit of a look at our academic programming needs and enrollment trends. So some of that is detailed in here. From that time, 2018 to today, 2024, we have been engaging in ongoing capital improvements throughout the organization. We allocate funds each year into a capital fund that we use to pull out for those large-scale expenses. Again, examples of that would be a comprehensive HVAC renovations, roofing projects, asphalt, concrete, all the things that you would expect in a school system or an organization of our size. So we have been chipping away at those items and have been averaging about $2.5 million per year in expenditures to keep up with our site and our facilities. We've also been looking at our enrollment trends, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about here and show you some images. We've been doing this really for a pretty long duration, ever since really even back when I was a high school principal, transitioned in my role up here. It's constantly been something that we are attentive to. And we are seeing, as most of you are aware, a consistent, steady increase in enrollment all throughout our system. So part of this feasibility study was to look to the future to help us make informed recommendations. During that time, we've also had some short-term solutions that we've had to implement along the way. If any of you are familiar with the Whitfield Elementary School site, we added 4 modular classrooms there years ago to help lessen the impact of increased enrollment. We were approaching the mid-600s from a student count, which is just far over the capacity of that building. So we put those modular classrooms in to try to alleviate some of the pressures we were feeling in the school. And about a year or two later, we actually went through a right-sizing project. And the right-sizing really was to analyze the entire organization from an elementary and middle school perspective, and to make decisions on how to shift populations from one community-based elementary school into another. As you know, our youngest children especially that's a tough process to go through. The elementary school becomes their home. It becomes their family away from home. And that work was done in collaboration with lots of people in this room. And we are about 2 years into that adjustment. After doing so, we continue to monitor literally on a daily basis where we are. And we are seeing some of our schools too specifically that are again at or approaching 600 students. So the short-term solutions really provided a short-term relief for us, but they are not a long-term plan. So we also have been working with Crabtree, Rohrbaugh and Associates, and specifically Mr. Dowdy here, as well as our board and our team, to specifically focus on this elementary project. So this project kind of started, again, a few years ago through a lot of different community sessions, information gathering sessions, and ultimately led us to the recommendation, which the board approved earlier this year, to build an elementary school, continue the due diligence process at the Lincoln Park site. And I'm going to talk more about that. Before I do so, I just want to note that everything that we have discussed in public is available on our website. There is a dedicated website that you can access directly off of the Wilson School District site. If you received a letter from me, perhaps, many of you received a direct letter, or if you received an email, or so on our website, there is actually a link to it from that as well. That you can access all of the notes, presentations, and if I've referenced something that's a little bit, it's new to you, you can always go back there to get additional information. So next I'd like to just talk a little bit about the research, the evaluation, and the analysis process. So what considerations did we make as we were looking at the necessity to build a new 6th elementary school? We realized over this time period since 2018 that those projections that we were looking at became our reality. And we're going to talk more about that. But the enrollment, consistent increase in our organization and our community led us to this recommendation. We also reflected on and analyzed our current schools. So as you know, we have 5 elementary schools. Most of those schools have capacity, or were built for the capacity for 3 classrooms per grade. All of those schools now are built and have been added on to house 4 sections per grade. In addition to the 4 sections per grade, we have 12 or 13 grades or classrooms that are an overload, which means that we have somewhere between 4 and 6 sections of each grade in each school. So we are essentially well over our functional capacity in each one of those buildings, which is estimated to be and calculated to be 500 students. As I mentioned before, 2 of our schools are at 600 and rising. We also realized that during the entire time that we've been doing this and analyzing the enrollment and kind of the hard numbers, that the needs of our families, the needs of our learners continue to shift. And that's an important piece here. When we're looking at the kids that we serve, our responsibility, the legal expectation and our moral responsibility is to meet their needs, to do what we can within our power to provide an education for them that is as good as it can be. So when you look at free and appropriate education, we truly take that seriously. And we really want to make sure that we can program for the needs of learners in that way. When these schools were built, we didn't have to have spaces for a variety of learners. When we went to school, depending on when we went to elementary school, compared to today, the learning environment looks, feels, and sounds completely different. And again, we need to have the facility, the space for that. It could look like physical therapists, occupational therapists, school psychologists, social workers, special educators. All of these people work in our school district. All of these people work all across our system. And again, I would argue back when Whitfield and Cornwall Terrace were built, those needs just weren't present. So we're experiencing that enrollment growth, but we're also experiencing the needs of our program that have just expanded, making us feel even tighter in our school system and in our buildings. So we're going to go back to some of the hard data. So these numbers that you see up here in green, or the bars that you see, those are real numbers. Those are the actual enrollment counts that were pulled over those different years. So we chose 2013 specifically because that was the last year we really had any type of work done to increase enrollment capacity at our elementary schools. So you'll see at that time we had 5,866 students in our school district. And then we slide all the way across, and each year these colors shift because we get a year farther along, we add some more additional projection data, and we drop off a year in the past. But as of today, right now, and I just adjusted this before I came over, we are at 6,482 students. Again, 6,482 kids call the Wilson School District home. During that time, we have not added any classrooms in the Wilson School District, with the exception of the 4 modulars, like I mentioned at Whitfield Elementary School. So we use this projection data, and we look out actually 10 years. We feel good and confident with 5 years of projection data. And history has told us that that's a good number to look at. So when you look at 2023, this is the year we're in, 23-24. We use 2 different data sets. One is from a demographer that we work with, and the other one is from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. You can see here that we were projected this year to be at 6,429 students with the demographer Decision Insight, and Pennsylvania Department of Education recommended or projected that we'd be at 6,473. So we're trending a little high. It's not alarming. We're right where we thought we would be, and it just shows that we're continuing to see this steady growth pattern. If you take a look all the way to 2028, which again is not that far out for us, depending on which model you look at, we're going to be somewhere between 6,550 and 6,770. We're a large, growing suburban school district. Very different than many of our neighboring school districts. So these are considerations that we have to look at differently than some of our peers and friends in other communities. We also look at what is the potential for construction and residential growth. So what you see here is a district map. We have it color-coded by our current elementary sending region. So you can look to see kind of the different elementary schools that we have. We actually have them on there. They're very hard to see, but they're little blue school buildings. And those little pink dots represent students. They represent students who are educated here and we're responsible to care for. So you're going to see some dots that are outside of the school district, and obviously that's a concern or a question maybe that you have. There are a variety of different reasons why children that live outside of our boundaries are educated within the school district. Some of those reasons, most of those reasons are legal, and we are just following the law as it relates to ensuring kids are educated. I'd also like to draw your attention to the areas in black. And many of you have lived in this school district for a long time, longer than I have, and you know all of these black patches. These black patches represent residential construction. And all throughout our organization, all of you, most of you are aware of the apartments at Iroquois, adjacent to Southern Middle School, and how quickly those were built. You're aware of the golf course and the conversion into what's currently more of a over 55/transitional type of housing, but also there's going to be apartments in that site. You're probably aware of Glen Ridge and all the expansion that's occurred out there. Probably aware of the construction that's going around West Middle School. There are also a couple smaller rectangles or polygons. Those represent some larger scale apartments and or townhouses. So we are a school district that is growing. We are a school district that is adding a lot of options for families to move into. And we're also seeing some turnover in our homes, which is not represented in this slide. We're seeing a turnover in people who are moving out of some of our communities for retirement purposes or other reasons, and they're being filled with younger families. So that's a trend that the Wilson School District is experiencing that is, again, a little bit different than some of our neighboring districts. We truly are a destination school district. We are a place that people want to come because of the impact on their children. This slide here I put together, actually just shifted it from a prior slide that I had shown in the public. Previously, I've represented this slide with a 1.5-mile radius. So now we're kind of drilling down to the Lincoln Park community. And if you look right where the word radius is on the screen, that is the Lincoln Park site. So I drew a 1-mile radius out from there, and then I plotted only students that are currently in kindergarten through 5th grade. So I was looking at the current kids in our charge that are in those grades, and it came back with 541 students. So 541 kindergartners through 5th graders live within 1 mile of this school. I am not recommending that this will be the boundary line of the school. It's just from a visual impact for you to see the impact of putting a school in the heart of our community, where a very dense population of children live. Physically when you look at the dots, as opposed to maybe some other sites. Because I'm sure that'll be a conversation around, well, how do we choose this site? And one of the main reasons we chose this site was because of the number of students. And obviously the second piece, a big piece for us, which I'll talk more about, was we owned it. The district, the taxpayers in this community have owned this site for a very long time. So we're going to talk more about that. But again, here you get to see a little bit about the boundary lines. You also can see how we have to kind of work these boundary lines around different parts of West Wyomissing and Lincoln Park to make our numbers balance out. And the structure of these lines just doesn't sit well, I think, with most of us when you look at the boot and the heel of the boot and trying to reconcile why those lines are drawn the way they are. So we're committed to trying to make that better in our redistricting plan. So some other things that we considered is we considered adding on to elementary schools. And we've talked through this in different meetings throughout the last couple of years. We looked at specifically building on to our 3 newer elementary schools. And we had our team analyze what that would look like. We had them analyze the estimated cost structures associated with that. And what we found very quickly is that it's just not appropriate. It's not appropriate from an academic program standpoint. It's not appropriate from adding more vehicles and more parking and more water retention. It's not appropriate to really meet the needs of kids. They're already at 600 students. And one of our core principles that we developed early on was to try to keep our elementary schools where our youngest learners are as small as we could. And we did not feel that 750 students in an elementary school in the Wilson School District allowed us to achieve the goals that we have set. So I want to talk a little bit about the cost and the construction. I mentioned earlier that if I use Shiloh Hills as an example, Shiloh Hills was constructed with 3 classrooms per grade. And our cafeteria, our kitchen, our gymnasium, all of the spaces that are common, the hallways, the stairwells, were constructed for the capacity of 3 classrooms per grade. We then added 6 additional general education classrooms and some additional related services classrooms to all those schools, which was necessary, and it was the right decision at the time. To do so again would create a pretty serious challenge for our elementary educators and our leaders, and especially our kids. The halls would be full, the gym would not have the capacity, preparing meals would be a challenge, because now our capacity is 750. So we have to actually blow out those spaces. We need to add more square footage. We need to redesign how we serve food and how we prepare food. That really jacks up the cost of a construction project. It's not just building 6 classrooms. So I want to make sure that I'm very clear on how those estimates get higher, because we're not just looking at adding those classroom spaces. So we also looked at some other sites, and we actually partnered, Mr. Wolf is here as well, Matt Wolf from Remax of Reading, looking at some other site locations. and we worked with some of his student interns at the time, and we really took a deep dive into other parcels around this school district that we thought would be a good option. And we sat down multiple times, looked at it. We actually are engaging in a process right now and have been for some time with a landowner. And really where we got was that at this point, we feel that all of the strengths and benefits to the Lincoln Park site outweigh the benefits at all the other sites that we looked at. So obviously we'd have to secure land. We'd have to purchase the property, millions of dollars to do so. We have to go through all the appropriate studies to make sure that that site is capable of housing a building that houses students. We have to look at the costs obviously associated with that, and we need to look at the walkability. So one of the challenges that all school systems experience right now is getting CDL drivers and making sure that we can actually get children to school every day. So we had to look at and analyze the added stress that that would put on our system to have a building that didn't have walkers. So that's part of the reason that we landed and stick with the Lincoln Park site. So I want to talk a little bit about where we are with the Lincoln Park site specifically. Hi guys, welcome. Thank you for coming. So what we are recommending and what will go before our board for a second authorization next week is to build a brand new state-of-the-art 3-section per grade elementary school on the Lincoln Park site. This will create 6 elementary schools in the Wilson School District. It will create some additional capacity for us, kind of hit the pressure release valve from what our teachers are feeling and what our kids are feeling. It will allow for potential growth as well. It allows for the potential of adding pre-K, a pre-K classroom in every elementary school. We currently have 5 pre-K classrooms right now. 4 of them are housed in Berkshire Heights, and 1 of them is housed at Cornwall Terrace. So this would allow for the potential, if the board so decides, to make those pre-K environments in the home school, closer to where the children live. This would eliminate, and this is a big piece for us, we currently split Spring Ridge Elementary School. So again, 5 elementary schools, 2 middle-level buildings. So what happens to our kiddos at Spring Ridge is that depending on where you live, where your address is, you either go to Southern or West. And through our community sessions that we had and our conversations with our kids and our staff, that was a major concern for them. They didn't feel that that was appropriate to split one of our schools, but not to split the others. So in this model, 3 elementary schools would go to 1 middle school, and 3 elementary schools would go to our other middle school. The elementary schools would be a little bit different in capacity, and we would recommend opening the doors somewhere around these numbers. So our elementary schools that are currently constructed would be somewhere around 510 students. So roughly 90 students less than we currently have in Whitfield. Again, lots of assumptions worked into these numbers. We are proposing today that roughly 360 students would attend Lincoln Park Elementary School. So again, not 6 of the same schools. This school would be smaller, the total capacity would be smaller, and that was by design, making sure that we're taking the needs of the community in mind when we build this school. So this is a proposed site plan, and we have been working on this for months, and we have been reviewing different options. As you know, a lot goes into a construction site of this magnitude. So this is what we're looking at today. So for those of you that live in the Lincoln Park community, you have a good feel of this site. You'll be able to see how we're proposing to bring traffic in and out of the site. Still some work to be done, but we have completed some of our preliminary studies in regards to traffic and flow of vehicles and people. You see that we're recommending coming in off of West Wyomissing Court as an entry point, trying to utilize that entry as opposed to utilizing Fillmore and Dorchester and other roads in the community. You see the way that the school is organized and structured, and Mr. Dowdy can talk a little bit more about that later, but we intentionally designed the school from a single floor to second floor standpoint to fit into the communities that are on the kind of the bottom right-hand side of the screen. You can see we're working in playgrounds, parking, we're working in sidewalk spaces, lots of different features that we're hoping will really add value to the Lincoln Park community. Add an option and really a place for our kids to play and a place for our kids to call home. Again, still preliminary in our process, lots of months, I guess 3 or 4 more months to go in our design work, and we'll take some of your feedback as we continue. Currently, we have 134 parking spots. So it sounds like just a random number, but it is something we've been planning for. We're trying to maximize the amount of parking that we can on this site, again, to lessen the impact on our neighbors that live in these communities. So this gives you a little bit of the schematic design of where we are as far as the interior of the school. You can see that we are planning for the three sections per grade, like I explained. Again, not to go super in depth about the design of the school, but it's state-of-the-art, encompassing kind of a main street design to it, separating our primary classrooms from our intermediate classrooms and so forth by hallway, but also by floor. Really providing some opportunity for some additional creative spaces. Music, the arts are highlighted in this design, as well as our STEM classrooms. Lots of small group instructional spaces to provide flexibility for growth and, again, meeting the needs of kids, which is what we're all committed to do. This is the second floor. So I mentioned that the design of the school is that it kind of steps up in the rear side of the school as you head kind of plan north. To provide kind of that step up of the building. So the second floor is designed to be a little bit less large in size, and we have our 4th and 5th graders up in that space. So just again, general, this is not the final design, but this just kind of shows you that step up, as I talked about, from the right side of the plan going up to the left side of the plan, and shows you the main entry point. Really trying to honor kind of the design of the community and the homes in that area. A little bit of a view from the inside. Again, very preliminary in the work, but just trying to show natural light coming into the school, large main hallway so that our kids can spread out and our staff. And really most of the rooms and the areas that are adjacent or off of this hallway is all the spaces that kids are going to need to access frequently, including the media center, the library, counseling, all of those different spaces. So, some community considerations. We are on target right now to have a completion date of July 2026. So that's the target. And specifically, we need some time to get into this building to make sure that our staff have ample time to prepare to receive the children. We are happy to report that our site environmental and traffic studies are complete. So we've gone through that part of the design work and the engineering work and the analysis work, overcoming both of those very, very well, which is very positive. We are going to have to do a comprehensive redistricting. I just want to make sure that comes directly from me and is very clear. This is a big part of any growing school district's challenges. We did a right sizing that affected less than 200 students. This redistricting will affect more than that. So we need to look not only at the people and the students who live in the Lincoln Park community, but we also have to look at students in all the other buildings because we have a goal of balancing those schools out. It will also affect the middle schools and how some students may go to schools depending on where they live. We've done some preliminary analyses on this, but we really need to develop a task force. And we need to really spend a lot of time as a team working through what the best recommendation would be. So I have some tentative timelines for that, really committing to get that information out to our community as close to a year in advance as we can. We need to be very intentional in our process. I learned a lot through the right sizing that will, I think, help us as we do this. But I feel like giving parents a year in advance notice is what I would want if my children were in elementary school and lived there. So that's what we're committing to do. We also are committing to consider students that would be in terminal years, like the end of the elementary experience. We would never want to move a child in their 5th grade year after spending 5 years in a home school. And the same thing is true for a middle level school. We would never want to take a student who has been at Southern for 2 years and say, you know what, because adults made decisions, you now need to go to another middle school. So those are commitments, and there will be other commitments that we work through. We'll get your feedback for those that are affected to make sure that we can do everything we can to check off as many of those boxes as we work through this process. Again, much more information to come as we get farther in the process, but again, I just wanted to make sure that people understand that this is a pretty big shift in how we, the homeschools that kids go to. Timeline, I'm getting near the end of my conversation here. Timeline is as presented here, and these dates are, they're tentative dates, but if we work from the bottom, kind of work up, you can see that we're looking to open the school, and like I said, in the summer of 2026. The construction period, we're hoping to kick that off in the fall of 2024. Nice thing about this site is we don't have to work around other schools that are already there, so it shouldn't be an exceptionally lengthy construction period. The board has a few more decisions to make, and I wanted to make sure I highlighted those here. These processes, decisions like this are not done in one fell swoop. So typically and historically when we went through other construction projects, there are 4 or 5 decision points. And the responsibility that we have to educate and inform the board is making sure that each one of those decision points, they have the information they need to make appropriate decisions. And that's why we're here. The next decision point for our board is next week. So we wanted to make sure that we had a forum, a conversation here with all of you, because you're here for a reason and you have thoughts that you would like to share. Okay, the cost. That's an important question. How much does a project like this cost? And currently where we are from a construction total all-in project cost estimate is somewhere in the $31.5 to $34.9 million. This document shows a little bit more about the details of the building, the square footage of the building. For those of you that are really into those specifications, it's online for you to access, as well as all the other documents. But we're presenting this as an estimate right now. So again, lots of things change and causes our prices to fluctuate, but that's where we currently are. So I'm sure there will be some questions about how would you pay for something like this, and we can have a conversation around that. But in general, there would be a combination. It's kind of a mixed method to pay for a project of this magnitude. As it relates right now to Lincoln Park, we have already had one borrowing that the district has secured to fund the Performing Arts Center. There is roughly $15 million remaining from that fund because the board changed the scope and went with a decision that was less expensive than we had initially proposed. So the board and the finance committee will need to make a recommendation, but there is some money that we have that could go towards a project of this magnitude. Again, we work in committees. Our board functions as a whole, and then we also function through a committee structure. So at an upcoming finance committee, and our finance committee chair is here. Thank you for being here, Sean. We will talk more about and engage our financial team from Raymond James regarding how we'll propose financing a project of this magnitude. Okay, so that's the end of my formal remarks. I hope that the information I presented was informative for those of you that are hearing this maybe for the first or second time. Hopefully you got some of your questions answered, but at this point, what I would like to do is just kind of have an open dialogue. So we are streaming this live, and it will be archived on our school district's YouTube channel. So I would like people to come up, if you would like to speak to this podium up here. I have a mic on me, there's one here, there's one at that podium, and basically just share your thoughts. I can't guarantee that this is a question and answer session, but I can guarantee that we'll take note of what your comments and thoughts are, do our best to engage in a dialogue, and if we don't know the answer, we'll be honest, and we'll say we have to get back to you on that particular item. So I have a whole team here that can help us with this as well, but at this point I'd just like to open up the floor, this podium, maybe Mrs. Burkholder, if you can help me, if people would like to speak, just help escort them up to the podium. All right. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Chris Rosbowski. I'm a parent of a first grader attending Shiloh Hills, and I also have a 2-year-old going to Kids Paradise, which is just like where the new entrance to this facility would be at. So, and also the age where he may potentially benefit from this building being in my neighborhood. So we're on Lawrence Avenue. My wife's grandma is Betsy Hassler, Doc Hassler's old office, etc. But really excited about the prospect of this building coming back. When we moved here recently, just before the pandemic hit, this property was vacant. The playground, as many of you with children know, is in shambles. It's rusty. It's dangerous. And green space is such a rare commodity in a community like ours in Lincoln Park. So to have a public investment of this magnitude, which would potentially enhance accessible green space, play space, as well as benefit the education of our youth, is really encouraging. Considerations for me as a parent in this community on Lawrence Avenue is traffic. I think a lot of folks here are very concerned about that. Clarity in your design process in regards to traffic flow patterns associated with Wadsworth, to why a missing court would be appreciated if it's a one-way, a two-way. And really, if you could also speak specifically about engagement with the municipality and discussions around walkability to this facility, in particular in connection with the community that we bring into Lincoln Park, and how we can make it a welcoming experience for them, so they don't have to be afraid of the traffic that would really increase here. And also the sustainability associated with this project. I'm looking from a sustainability model concept, and I'm not seeing any reference to this space. So when I talk about green space, I'm also looking at, catchment areas. And you mentioned passing, your environmental analysis, which is wonderful, but definitely would like more details around planning for sustainability long-term, so this facility, this site is in long-term service to the community. So those are some of the thoughts there. Thanks.
Yep, you bet. Thank you so much. Lots of wonderful points. Our team here is taking down some of all of your points in regards to your feedback and your suggestions and some of the questions that you have. I will say from a traffic perspective, just because we are engaged in that conversation, and we are engaging with the municipality as well, so I appreciate you bringing that up. The next step is, after we have this conversation, we get approval next week, hopefully, is to engage them in a more formal process. They are engaged, as you know, of a project of this size, but really make sure that now their fingerprints are on it and giving us the feedback, giving Mr. Dowdy the feedback and our engineers, Mr. Simcox, to ensure that we're considering everything that is on their minds. So thank you. Yep, so Mr. Dowdy took some of those notes, so we can talk a little bit more about that and make sure we get. So we do have an FAQ on our website, which I could pull up here for you. But what we're doing is we're taking those questions, and because it's difficult to go directly to each person and ask them, we're just putting them right on the website. So from a sustainability point, I mean, Sean, do you want to speak at all to that? Just from, go ahead.
Those are really good questions. From a sustainability standpoint, you mentioned catchment areas for rainwater, things like that. I will say that the site is tight to have something like an open, like a grassland kind of catchment area, and still be able to accommodate the required parking that we need, and obviously the playgrounds and play space that we want. In all likelihood, we'll probably be doing mostly underground stormwater collection systems. As far as the building sustainability goes, although we're not directly striving to get any like LEED certification for the buildings that we design almost by default would get to the first level of LEED Silver. That's due to the efficiencies that we strive for in all of our mechanical, electrical, daylighting design. And then there's also features in the building that we're working to incorporate that I think talk to sustainability from like a public health standpoint. And that's not just like, having the right filters, things like that. It's like considering this site and this building an asset to the community, so that the building is a place that the community can go to together. And as such, we're designing it. I don't know if you can see those two red triangles Those are the two main entrances. We're showing two. It kind of has the parking side entrance and then goes straight through the building, that main street that Dr. Trick had talked about, to the kind of neighborhood side entrance. What we're really trying to do there is have the kind of interior expand out to the exterior and vice versa, the exterior expand to the interior, to make this a truly through-site, vibrant space for the community. So we think of sustainability in much broader terms as well. So hope that initially answers.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. Is there an elevator in this building?
Yes.
There is. Okay, I didn't see it. When you construct, most constructions have holding ponds. What are you going to do about that if you're going to flood out all those people on that street?
We will have underground stormwater storage.
Okay. What happened to the integrity of Mr. Martin and Mr. Negrini that said that the money that you get back should come back to the people instead of wildly spending? We are in one of the biggest depressions of our American history. People are struggling. They can't even put food on their table. And you want us to open our wallets and just spend. What happens to the integrity of the two gentlemen that actually thought about the taxpayers?
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Keener.
First of all, Dr. Trickett, I can hear the passion in your voice when you talk about this project, and I see you've put a lot of thought into it. And I love that during your slides, you always brought it back to what's best for the kids. And this project, at the end of the day, should be about what is best for our K through 12 children that attend the Wilson School District. So one of the things that, there was a few questions from the community. So unfortunately, some of the individuals couldn't be here tonight, so I brought some other questions. One deals with that site environmental study you were talking about, and to the gentleman's point earlier, maybe some a bit more detail on that site study, specifically regarding I think there was mention of battery casings being found on or near that property, and just knowing that the potential for harm with, when you're repairing with demolition, excavation of lead contaminated materials, and, just making sure that we can assure the students attending that school, as well as the residents around that school, that there isn't any potential for harm. Because I'd rather see an overcrowding in a district school than children and residents being harmed by something they can't see. Another one was seeing the inclusion of, the dedicated pre-K rooms, which, don't get me wrong, no one's against pre-K. It's just that the PA school system is responsible for K through 12 children. And our primary focus really should be dedicated to those children. While I completely understand there may be some benefits, and there are benefits to pre-K, when you cannot have it in all of your district schools, it is inequitable. If you're putting it in one school, you have it in Cornwall Terrace, you have it at Berkshire Heights, but then you don't have it at Green Valley, you don't have it at Spring Ridge, it creates some issues. So if we're going to be a community that offers that opportunity, we need to open it up to all students and not just, those in one or two schools. And then also, how does this impact, the additional or shortfall? I know there's 15 million that we talked about from the Performing Arts Center that is remaining, that could possibly be used for this project, which is great. I mean, that's a relief to hear that. However, will this project impact the the government budget came in over? So there's an anticipated cost savings that the board traditionally has passed on to the residents in this community that I think that's what Ms. Keener was referencing. Will this absorb that potential or anticipated, tax relief to the community that we've seen in the past, or, will it just stay status quo? And I think there's a lot of residents, who are living paycheck to paycheck that may be very important to. There's no question that children in our district deserve the very best when it comes to education. But like I said, many in our district are living paycheck to paycheck. So when they're hearing that there's an additional $15 million or $30 million project, it does cause some anxiety. And, you know, there's been many households that have had to prioritize for the needs of their children, where certain things their children can't have right now. And I feel that with this project, I think it's a great project. I just think we need to prioritize the needs of the K through 12 children at this time and potentially plan for the pre-K. I'm not saying erase it, but plan for it. And, but make sure that we're meeting the needs of all the current students that are attending our district from K through 12. And just wanted to add some information for the public. You know, I know there's a lot of residents or households that are struggling, you know, paycheck to paycheck. And there are programs, especially if you are 65 and older, if you're a widow or a widower and you're 50 years of older, or if you're disabled and you're 18 years or older. If your annual income is below $45,000 a year, there's a tax rent and a rent rebate program available for every single resident in this community if you're struggling. And it gives you up to $1,000 rebate. So visit mypath.pa.gov if you know someone in your community or your family that's struggling. I truly hope this information is helpful to at least some families in this district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So just a variety of questions there. I just want to take a moment to discuss the environmental study. As that was discussed publicly at other board meetings, our environmental study returned no evidence that there were battery casings or any remnants of batteries on this site. So again, that was one of our preliminary due diligence studies that had to be done as we were determining that. So just want to be very clear that that was not part of our study. And the costs, obviously, Mrs. Santiago, are part of our conversations. And as I said previously, we will continue to engage in these conversations within our committees and ultimately as a full board. And the board will have to make a decision on how to fund this project. We are very cognizant of the impact on a millage, tax millage increases, and considering all options, including our current run rate, including a variety of different restructuring options to lessen any impact on our community. So we value very much any input that you have. I know our board very well, and they truly want to serve and make sure that they're making good decisions. So continue to give us that feedback as we move through this process so that we can try to, again, make as informed of a recommendation and decisions as we can. Lastly, with the pre-K counts, that is a program that is funded not with local taxpayer dollars directly to the school district, albeit it does always, as we know, get funded through taxpayer money in some way. Our commitment there is to try to have one pre-K counts classroom in each home-based school. It's not guaranteed. It's not a promise. It's a focus. It's something that we're trying to accomplish, but we absolutely will prioritize the needs of our K through 12 learners as that is required by law. So this provides us with the possibility as an option. It does not guarantee that we will have that space in all of our schools. So again, thank you very much for your comments, and just let's hold on, let's let some other people have a chance.
Hi there. My name is Adam Kurtz. I lived in Lincoln Park for about 4 years. I have a toddler, so it'll be really nice to walk down the street with him to take him to school. So that's exciting. My first question is related to the rationale behind only 3 grade levels for this building. I assume that's related to site size, but if you could expand on that a little bit, that'd be great. Second question is related to just teachers in general. In terms of, I assume we're looking at an additional 15 to 20 educators for this building at a time when there's a nationwide teaching shortage. There's less college graduates coming out in education. So I'm wondering, do you feel confident that we can hire those educators and keep them around? And relatedly, well, not relatedly, but this is kind of a nice to have. I assume the playground will be the first thing to be demolished. If it could be the first thing to be built, that would be also nice to have.
Which playground? There's multiple playgrounds up there. So again, thank you for your comments. I wanted to start just by talking about teachers, right? Obviously, kids are why we're here. That's what we do. We focus on, again, as was discussed, meeting the needs of children. But in order to do that, we must have amazing people in our classrooms, right? So they go hand in hand. So the short answer of that question is we have been building up staff for the past few years. We have been allocating funds in our budget, in our general fund, to be able to hire additional teachers. Earlier, I made a statement regarding our school capacity and what it was designed for, and I also said that there are bubbles in all of those schools. So in the new model, if we realize 500 students in an elementary school or 510, what would happen is there wouldn't be bubbles. There would be 3 or 4 sections in each school. The potential of obviously a 5 as enrollment shifts in our different communities. But what would happen is those teachers, we would be moving teachers, experienced teachers, from our 5 elementary schools into this setting, into Lincoln Park. They would not be all brand new teachers that are hired fresh. So we analyze our staffing, again, on what feels like weekly basis, and we have been building up that staff. So we're talking about general education teachers serving as classroom teachers. We will have to hire some additional special educators, people who serve in our related services department, school counselors, nurses. Those folks will have to be added if we can't pull from some other buildings. It's all going to be dependent on needs of children. The number is one part, the needs are another. So we are building up the budget, and the board has allocated funds over the last 3 years and is projected to continue to do so in our budget to ensure that the staffing impact is lessened. So I'm confidently standing before you saying that most of the staff will transfer. And then we will fill it with other folks that we will hire between now. Some of those folks are being worked into next year's budget as we speak, and then again next year. Your other question, I believe, was regarding, thank you. Yeah, so Y3. So we've wrestled with this, and the board is still wrestling with this. Quite frankly, the goal was to try to build a 6th elementary school that was as close to the same as the others. And the short answer is, and when we break into, we're going to break here around 7 into smaller groups. Mr. Dowdy can talk a little bit more about that, but it's the site. As you said, it's very tight. We're dealing with, I think, right around 9 acres, maybe a hair less, 7.5 acres. So the site has constraints, and we also want to make sure that we want to make sure we're considering the needs of the community. Not every taxpayer has children. And we really want to make sure that we're not building a site that doesn't fit in the Wilson School District. Could it be done? Perhaps. Should it be done? I think it is another conversation. It's one we've had a lot. So Mr. Dowdy can talk a little bit more about that, and Mr. Simcox once we break here. Any other questions for the whole group? Come on up. Yep, come up to the microphone, please.
I live directly across that playground, and it's used very heavily. Basketball, volleyball, pickleball, sled riding with kids.
Okay.
There is no other open area. Is there going to be some kind of accommodation, or are they going to be playing in the streets and in our yards for 2 years?
Oh, during the construction period. I understand what you're saying.
Yes, I mean, the equipment is terrible, it's unsafe, they're right. But they do, there's organized volleyball games every year, pickleball,
Okay.
basketball, sledding all this winter since we had snow with the little kids. There won't be any place, that is the only piece of land in our whole neighborhood.
So their request would be, could we work
Accommodate
into
some kind
type
of land that
Okay.
they could at least have, that they're not playing in our yards and our
Yeah,
streets.
it's a great
Our
recommendation.
streets are terrible because parking, you can't see around the corners, kids are going to get hit.
We want to keep them safe. That's great feedback. So that's something that we can relay to our team to consider. Okay, we'll do one more question if we have one, and then we'll break into smaller groups. I see 2 hands. Mr. Giannakovo, come up first, and then, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, that's okay.
You'll finish us, Mr. Giannakovo.
So my name is Madison Kurtz. I was a former teacher at Green Valley Elementary. I worked for John Stenger. I just resigned in May of 2023 to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm really excited about this project. I know that there's a lot of unsure feelings, but I want to just speak to a teacher's perspective. Teachers are not able to adequately support all of their students with the current numbers. We're just not. There's been years where I've had 26, 27 fourth graders in my class, and it's not enough for one person to handle. So I'm so excited for this project because it's going to mean smaller class sizes. It's going to mean more support for our students, and I can't speak enough to the positives that this project is going to bring. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say, Mr. Stanger is a pretty cool asset to our community. He pulled my son from Lincoln Park Pool in a near drowning accident when he was seven, I think it was. Not that you would, not, okay, yeah, so this is actually, I think, the first time I've gotten to see you since then, I think. So anyway, at least shake your hands. Thank you again. I don't know if dismayed's the right word. I kind of thought we would also be talking about the future Southern Middle School renovations tonight, because my comments are around, this number of 31 to 35 million, I'm rounding. But that, my comments really focus on the debt cost of this thing. In my one business, when we finance a purchase, we're legally required to show cost of ownership. When you buy a car, it's $40,000 and you pay $7,000 in interest, so your cost of ownership is $47,000, and that's legally, like, right in front of you, you got to sign off on it. What we're talking about right now, and this was from our last board meeting, is about 85 million in renovations between the two projects, 70 million finance, because we have that 15 million. Right now, until we can look at debt restructuring, maybe some other financial maneuvering, right now, the thought on the table of discussion is to extend our current debt service that matures in 33, another 13 years. But that 10 years at 10.9 million in debt service is $141 million. And so I suppose, I'm not here to say we don't need this. I think, I'll trust we do, and I believe that. But I think what we should do is very clearly say, this is not a $70 million capital project. It will be a far greater number of what it is. And I think it's very fair that everybody involved knows that number and talks about this project and other projects in that manner, because that's actually the real impact. I think that's most fair on this project. I sat Monday night, I was just astounded as I literally was punching it in the phone calculator multiple times, and I just said, do I have this right? Do I have this right? And again, if we can maneuver, that's fantastic. But we should be speaking that that's the real number, or what it will be. But it will be a greater multiple than 70 million for the two projects and 35 for the one. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jacques has been engaged with us too via email, so he does have, information that was shared directly recently. And as I mentioned a couple of times, of course there will be borrowing, right? Projects of this magnitude, we are talking about Lincoln Park, and that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. But we're also talking about, as I mentioned, a large project at Southern Middle School. We have to do things. We have capital improvements, including a mechanical system, that needs to be replaced. That is very, very expensive. I actually read earlier today, I was preparing for a pep rally tomorrow in our high school, where the students wanted some trivia. So we have a book that was written by Alan Raffoff that we were going through. And what I learned is that the cost to build Southern Middle School at the time, in the 60s, 74, thank you, Mr. Simcox, was at 5 point, it's less than $10 million to build the entire school. Today, with our current cost estimate, it costs more than that to replace the HVAC system. So as anyone knows, it's the money, the cost to build something is different than the true cost to the taxpayer, the cost of ownership. We will continue to look at all different options, from both a length of the term of our borrowing and also the monthly payment, right? We're looking at all of those options, the run rate, to ensure we have the most options available to our board to make those informed decisions. Again, constantly looking at that information. We just need to be very mindful that whatever decisions we make don't hold us hostage to staffing and doing the other things that we need to be agile enough to do. We are in a teacher crisis. It is very difficult to hire quality educators. It's hard to keep quality educators, so we need flexibility. It's hard to find custodians and food service workers and CDL drivers. All of you know this. You all work in different industries. So we need to still have enough buffer in our operating expenses to handle, to run this organization. Again, 6,000, nearly 500 students. But I thank you very much, Jeff, and that's absolutely work we're going to continue to kind of wrap our hands around. And there will be public conversation at board meetings as we work through this process. So I just would like to, again, one more time, thank you, not only from me, but our entire administrative team here, our board of directors, all of the community members that are here. I know there's a lot of people here that did not speak, who I'm sure have questions and thoughts and ideas. I'd love to have you go to the website and look to see if that information is out there, spend a little bit of time. And if you find that it's not, reach out. Reach out to us and we'll do our best to get you that answer. We'll do our best also to take your questions and touch on them in future board meetings and public presentations that we do. We'll do our best to add them to our frequently asked question kind of repository on the website to make sure that you're as informed as you can be. At this time, I'd like to kind of close out the official community session. I will leave myself available up here. Mr. Dowdy, if it's okay, you stand over here by the flagpole. There might be some questions for you. Mrs. Schlossman is our CFO. She's in the red. She will be over here kind of near me. We have Mr. Wolf here as well. Matt Wolf is a respected and trusted real estate agent for RE/MAX of Reading. He has also done a little bit of an analysis on kind of the impact on property values and maybe the impact for you as someone who lives in the community and doesn't have children. I know he's willing to be a part of this conversation. And then we have a variety of other folks, including our school board of directors here as well. So thank you again, and this will officially close out our meeting. Thank you to those people that are watching remotely.